Part 3, Journey's End, Ann Arbor. They thanked Alex and were sorry to have to change their plans to stay with him through the winter. He said he understood and felt it was right to try to make it to Ann Arbor before winter really set in for them. As they drove away, both of them said at the same time, "Where'd the little girl go? She probably went to the same place as the Pam thing if Rolling Thunder's right." "Well, get out those Canadian maps Alex gave you and be my navigator. Next stop is appropriately enough Medicine Hat on Canada's Highway 1. See how far it is, okay?" "Okay." Rummaging around for a while, Pam announced, "Looks close to 350 miles. Definitely an all-day drive, and the weather is scary." It was scary and dark and blustery out, and looking worse in the direction they were heading than west. "Pam, do you remember Sergeant Preston of the Yukon? The old radio show?" "I think so." "Didn't he have a dog named King?" "That's right, and he'd say, 'I arrest you in the name of the Queen.'" Oh, great memories. Canada was always a strange area for us kids in the States. Well, it turns out Canada is even stranger than we imagined. It's almost Thanksgiving, but it feels like Halloween. Lots of ghostly stuff here on the open highway. Turn up the heater. I'm getting a little bit spooked, John. I would guess Ann Arbor's about 2 days in our Chevy Nomad or a month by camel. Huh? Just kidding. Little gallows humor. I'm just nervous. Around 7:30 they drove into the travel lodge at Moose Jaw off Highway 1. It was windy and freezing out, and the motel had a large common room with a fireplace for the weary travelers to thaw out. People could talk to each other and ask about road conditions further on down the highway. Jim checked in as the Whittemores. Well, we were really married now and proud of it. We weren't fooling anybody anyhow, using fake names. After taking their bags to their room, they joined the other folks in the great room with the fire. Pam asked around to find out who had just come from the east, and she found a nice couple. "Jim, this is the McNeils from Toronto. They're trying to get out to Vancouver," said Pam. "Hello," said Jim. "We're trying to get east to Sault Ste. Marie. We plan to turn south there over the car ferry and head for Lansing and Ann Arbor. We just got married, and I'm taking Pam back to meet her new family. Actually, she thinks she's pregnant already, and we were trying to find a local doctor before we left this area. Wanted to find out how many people we have on our team." The McNeils looked funny. Jim said, "It's a private joke." Mr. McNeil invited Jim and Pam to sit by the fire for a short bit while he relayed the road conditions. Then Mr. McNeil said something pretty alarming. There had been reports of unusual weather phenomenon out east. Things people wouldn't have thought possible if they hadn't seen them with their own eyes. There was a group gathering around the television set in the great room. The Canadian Broadcast Company was delivering the nightly news, which finished up with some alarming weather stories. Sounded like stuff right out of Indian legends. "It is being reported this evening that some motorists on the Transcontinental Highway that some very strange thunderheads have been spotted. Even stranger, there have been sightings of what looks like a man's face in the thunderhead. Some World War II veterans swear it is the face of a general in the U.S. Air Force, although they refuse to name the man." "Jesus, Pam, I'm afraid to find out what face that belongs to." "Me too," she said faintly. Lastly, the local Indian medicine men have all gone to ground claiming there's going to be a tremendous battle soon between the spirit world and ours. What a strange weather report. Of course, it's Canada. That night they simply held each other very tight. They knew for sure they were in for a mother of all battles. Somewhere between where they were in Ann Arbor, the alternates would appear and demand they submit or be killed. "Pam, the way I understand it, you made different choices in 2 different worlds. Now you have to choose which one will be real. They can't exist at the same time, even in parallel." Jim slipped off her top and put his hand in her pants. Then he touched where Kim would be coming out next year. Again he smelled her scent and knew they were meant to be together. That's very primal. But he knew he was right. Then they made love until the moon set, and their hearts were satisfied. Chapter 12. They saw the McNeils again at breakfast and said their goodbyes, and left lovely downtown Moose Jaw never to see it again. They must get postcards to savor the memory. Sure thing, Jim muttered. Back in the Chevy, they get back on the interstate and were moving right along. He hoped the Royal Canadian Mounted Police didn't have horses that could run at 75 miles an hour. If not, they were safe. He hoped they would make Winnipeg by nightfall. Then they'd hit the Mackinac Bridge after turning south at Sault Ste. Marie the next morning. Pam screamed so loud she split the silence. Jim struggled to retain control of the Nomad and saw what had scared her. About 10 or 15 miles ahead of them, there was a tremendous black thunderhead looming out of the forest. The kind that means a huge storm with lightning and horrible cracks of thunder. The Indian gods had woken up. The Indian gods were angry and spoiling for a fight, and somebody else was joining in. Pam, what did you see? I know what I saw, said Jim. His face. I saw his fucking face. Yeah, that was the general. Pam was crying quietly. She'd never heard Jim swear so much, and about her father. He was starting to worry about her mental health. Pam, remember what Rolling Thunder said? We'll lose if we show any traces of fear. I saw that thing too, he told her. And I think we saw what the Indians call a thunderbird. I thought it was a myth, but I bet our friend the medicine man would disagree. It's just like what happened to us up on the Oregon-Washington state border when that deer ran past your window. The damn thing had an image of your father's face. It was shape-shifting. This is all very crazy, but it's very real. Let's try to outrun this storm for a while. Although we're just putting off the inevitable battle. We have to get ready psychologically for the fight. He pulled into a rest stop and Pam reached over and pulled him close. They embraced for a long, long time and tried to relax. They spent the rest of the day and evening outrunning the storm. The road stretched out ahead of them, and even at 85 miles an hour it seemed the thunderhead was always there. Jim exclaimed, Pam, does it look like we're gaining on the darn thing? She took her hands away from her eyes and said, A little, I think. How can that be? Jim wondered. The whole weather system only moves at about 20 miles an hour. How can it stay that far out in front of us when we're going 85? But by late afternoon, they'd passed the storm and saw the clear skies all the way to Winnipeg. He decided to treat themselves to a real hotel room this time. Something with a nice tub for Pam, maybe even a jacuzzi. He needed her to be well rested for tomorrow. She was going to have to do things that she never thought she was able to do. He planned to stay up all night if necessary and cradle her like a baby. He had to protect her. It was all up to him now. He was the head of the household and he was also its primary defender. Tomorrow, they'd see if they had a future together, or if the alternates would rule both worlds. Chapter 13. The Mean Season. The day dawned dark and windy as they looked out of their hotel room window and sipped the instant coffee they'd found in their room's hot plate. Jim looked into his lover's eyes and said, I swear before God to hold no one above you, and I will defend you and our child with my life. And his lover said in return, I take you to be my husband in sickness and health, for richer and poor. Oh God, Jim, I love you. They loaded up the Chevy Nomad and took the car to a mechanic to make sure it was in top form. It was race day and the next stop would be Thunder Bay. After that, the lake locks of Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Then over the Mackinac Bridge to their new home in Michigan. Mechanic gave a thumbs up and Jim revved up the 327 Corvette engine. It sounded quite ballsy. Jim had the mufflers taken off and replaced with glass backs. It was incredibly loud, but it gained them additional horsepower. Also had a very aggressive sound, like a wounded mechanical mountain lion or something. Very loud. Presently they found themselves within spitting distance of Thunder Bay. Pam said, "Maybe we won't have to fight 'em at all. Looks like we made it." I wouldn't count on it. It turned out Thunder Bay was aptly named. On the outskirts of town, Pam and Jim saw a new thunderhead, larger and meaner than the one they'd left behind. This time he saw the face of her father in the clouds on top of the storm. His head was half man and half thunderbird out of the Indian legends. It was their most powerful and respected god. Now Jim knew he had all the power of the Indian nation's spirits on their side. He was continually shape-shifting and changing colors. They turned south off Highway 1 to the road to Sault Ste. Marie. After lunch, they raced all the way through the lake locks to the highway to the Mackinac Bridge. The view along the shoreline of Lake Michigan was very beautiful this late fall. Deep reds in the leaves, dark cobalt blue of the lake water, and the bridge off in the distance. Typically, the deciduous trees of the Upper Peninsula were tall and bare, waiting stoically for the first snow. Folks were beginning to hit the highway for Thanksgiving weekend and looked nervously at the storm clouds. Michigan State Highway signs began their dark hunter green and white. Very beautiful. It all looked like a perfectly beautiful ending to their journey to Ann Arbor. Hell, they'd be there tonight and meet all the relatives. Pam was quite excited about meeting her new family, and Jim, of course, could not have been prouder. The problem was, of course, they weren't there yet. And they knew. Another shriek of terror from this girl, and Jim knew they weren't in Kansas anymore. The Mackinac Bridge disappeared into the fog, and the thunderhead loomed above the suspension portion of the structure. There appeared two figures in the road. The first to be recognizable was the little girl from Lake Harrison. Pam looked away and cried, "It's my baby, Kim." "No, it's not Kim. It's an alternate. It's a doppelganger. Don't be fooled, honey. It's a doppelganger from an alternate future, from an alternate world. Not ours. It's a godless world. We have to kill them all and not show any remorse. Remember what Rolling Thunder told you when the old woman appeared in front of you at the fire at the lodge? They're like terrorists. You and I must kill them to be free, and I'm not going to stop for anybody. Close your eyes if you must, but don't cry out. They must fear us." There was a loud thud as the girl's body bounced off the car. Jim slowed and motioned Pam to get out. "See, it has no face. It's like the man I killed at the church that night. He didn't have a face either. You can't kill a creature with no face. It's not human. I'll pull the body off the road and leave it for the wolves. They have to eat too." Pam looked stunned and sad while she looked at the divided highway to the second figure standing in the middle of the roadway on their side, just in front of the bridge. They walked up together to the silhouetted image ahead. Headlights seemed to shine right through the frail body. As they approached, Pam gave a little cry to herself. It was the old woman from the Indian Lodge. She was even older and angrier than before, and she challenged Pam directly. "You bitch. You daughter of a whore and a jackal. Who is this man you've chosen? In my world, things came out differently. In my world, I made decisions different. My boy was Bill, and he was a dreamboat, so he drank a little. Dad just raves about him. Seems he was molested as a child like we were. He's short, but he is regular Army. He pisses Army green and salutes officers, especially retired generals, like dear old Dad. Our children were quite reptilian, more Army brats that know how to take orders. What will your future be like, dearie? All touchy-feely, all artsy-craftsy? I hear your husband's.